Alright, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about the sociological imagination. Before we get started though and really get into the material for today, I do want to cover a couple of objectives that I have for you all today. First, we're going to define and explain what the sociological imagination is. Just kind of go through a brief history and overview, some definitions. It's going to be as simple as possible. Just so you're aware, I do use the same terminology as your book, so if you read the chapter for today, then you should be pretty up to speed with what I'm going to be talking about, the phrases I'll be using, and the terminology used in the book as well. Then hopefully by the end of the class, we'll be able to analyze an object or a concept using our sociological imagination. So that's the big one. A third that's not up here, though, for me personally, is for you all to be able to go home and talk to your roommate or your family or whomever it may be about the sociological imagination and for it to make sense to them and to you. Hopefully we can establish that today as we move forward. Alrighty, so the sociological imagination was a phrase coined by C. Wright Mills. He's an American sociologist, and it was coined in his book called The Sociological Imagination in 1959. And according to Mills, this is just kind of a way, and this is the definition that your book provides as well, the sociological imagination is just kind of a way for us as sociologists to look at the data that we're studying or a population or a culture or a society that we're interested in. This is just the lens through which we do that as sociologists. There are two main aspects to the sociological imagination. These in green is the phrases that your book uses, and then these are the more general phrases that people within the field use. So there's a personal biography or personal trouble, as well as the history or public issue aspect to it. Before we start jumping into some different examples that I have set for today, we're going to watch a brief video that kind of repeats this definition in a different way and provides its own example, so hopefully that will help clarify what I've already said and help us successfully build a framework around the rest of our discussion for the day. I know that video does cut off a bit abruptly, but the reason I showed it to you The reason I showed it to you all today is because it does go over the definition and kind of explain how your personal trouble and history come together to create how we as sociologists view and study the world around us. Before we move on to my example for the day, does anybody have any questions about the sociological imagination? Okay, so you all understand that there is the personal trouble and the historical context and the larger kind of picture to that and what that all entails. All right, I'm seeing some head nods, so we're going to go ahead and move along. So the example that I chose to use for today is obesity in the United States. And before I get started with this, I do just want to point out that I structured my lecture off of another YouTube video. So if you do have more questions, that video goes way in depth. So you can use that as a resource. I do have the link on the slide as well. So moving forward with the example of obesity in the United States, absolutely this can be a personal trouble, right? Everybody eats, and it's a personal choice what we eat, how much of it that we eat. So an example specific to OU, how many of you live on campus? Okay, so for those of you that don't live off campus, or on campus rather, there are 3 main dining halls, but the 2 big ones that people tend to favor are Boyd and Shively. So Shively on East Green has a lot of comfort food. There's, mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, they have chicken nugget day. It's like all of that really awesome food that we all want to eat but maybe shouldn't eat. And then Boyd is known for being as the healthier alternative. So you can see how this plays out day to day for us as students as well. We have these personal choices, so obesity can become this personal issue. So like I just said, you as the individual can decide what kind of food and how much of it that you eat. So continue on with obesity, but from the public issue, of course there are social constructs that contribute to obesity, especially in the United States. First, fast food is cheaper and more accessible. We all kind of have an understanding of that. That's why this picture in the top right corner is on this slide. It's 99 cents versus $2 for a Coke versus the water, and 99 cents for a burger instead of $5 for salad. That makes sense, but a big reason that happens is because our government invests time and money into processes that are quicker and produce cheaper food. They get more bang for their buck. So that becomes a social, societal issue. There are also food deserts. For those of you that don't know what those are areas in the United States that have trouble getting access to either produce or healthier food alternatives. So obviously that goes beyond your household or your personal choice. It's what's available to you and where you live. And finally, the food pyramid is a great example of this. So how many of you are aware of the fact that the food pyramid is actually not the best representation of what we should be considering like a healthy diet? Great. So a lot of people have that understanding, and the majority of the public does not. So there's just a lack of general nutrition education and what some alternatives, healthier alternatives are. So for example, cow's milk and how to get calcium and vitamin D outside of cow's milk. A lot of people don't have that. So like I said, for more information on the example that I provided in class in obesity, the video is called The Sociological Imagination, and that's by Sociology Live. If you need more examples on what this video can provide those for you, as well as give you more in-depth reasons to why some of the things that I've said are personal troubles versus public issues. Does anybody have any questions on the example that I provided today? Okay. So just to quickly recap, C.R. Mills coined the term the sociological imagination in his book in 1959. And the SI is the personal troubles or biography and public issues or history. This is just the way that we as sociologists, view the world and how it's what makes us unique. So the 2 examples from today from the video, they talked about unemployment and we talked about in class obesity. But the major takeaway here is that SI is the way that sociologists think about the world. There's always more than one answer to every question and more than one perspective to take, so I urge you to think through your sociological imagination as we move through this course. It's going to be really important that you're able to take that broader perspective and understand society outside of the expectations or the experiences that we've had. So before I let you all leave for the day, I would like for you to do just a quick minute paper. Give me an example of another concept that we can study using the sociological imagination. This is pretty low stakes, but I would like for you to include how personal troubles and public issues come together to create the issue that you've chosen. All right, any final questions before you start that? All right, great. So then get started, and then you guys are free to leave for the day. Thanks.